Hey everybody, Chrissie Tobas here for ThermOWeb, and today I'm going to show you how to make this card. We are going to use some really fun Picket Fence Studios supplies. So I have this stencil, and I'm using some Pixie Spray to hold it down. Pixie Spray is repositionable spray that is perfect for stencils because it doesn't leave any type of adhesive or residue on there once you spray it on, and it's great because it keeps the cardstock and the stencil together. So when you're doing things like this, like adding the Glitz Glitter Gel or any ink or anything, the stencil doesn't move, and neither does the paper. So I'm just adding this Glitz Glitter Gel. Now this particular stencil is a Peacock stencil, but it's called Peacock Tail. But I decided, because I had a mermaid stamp to use, that I was going to make it look like mermaid tail instead. So I'll show you how I did that. But in the meantime, you can see I'm just adding some of this Glitz Glitter Gel. Now, in general, I don't use a palette knife. I have a stencil pal that I tend to use, but since I wasn't going to cover the entire stencil all with one color, I decided to use my palette knife instead, so I could go ahead and do like a couple colors and then just kind of blend them together. So I am using Turquoise Sea, Wild Lilac, Grass Green, and at the very end here I'm going to put white. And I'm just showing you real quick. I did it with all of them, and then some of it I cut it out. I clean off the stencil with the paper towel, and then I actually had a damp paper towel that I go around the edges of that Glitz Glitter Gel container because there is glue in there. So if you have some on the edges, it will kind of keep the cap on there, and then it's a real pain in the neck to open. So I would suggest taking a damp paper towel when you are done with it and just kind of cleaning off the edges, and then that way I've done that every time, and I've had no problems opening it after it sits for a few days or whatever and the glue dries. So next I have a stamp set from Picket Fence Studios as well, and it's called Swim Hard, Play Hard, Love Hard. And this was my inspiration for that mermaid tail stencil. It's this cute little mermaid. And I am just stamping this. I've got some of that ink on 3 ink, and it's the no line ink. So if you don't have that, it's completely fine. You can use any type of really light colored ink, or you don't even have to do no line for this. I just kind of felt like, because it was a mermaid, make it kind of soft, make it kind of sweet, so I wanted to go with no lines, but you could really do whatever you want. And then I'm taking a sentiment from that same stamp set that says "You are Mer-Mazing," and I am just using some Watermark ink, and then I'm going to emboss it with some white embossing powder. So real quick, I'm just showing you how I do that. Use a heat gun to activate it. If you've never heat embossed before, I definitely give it a try. It's kind of like one of those go-to techniques that I just use all the time. So as I mentioned, I am using a no line ink. So this stuff fades out after you kind of start coloring. So you can see the lines, but then they kind of disappear with the alcohol markers. I guess that's the way that the ink is formulated, so it's pretty cool. It makes you kind of look like you're a no-line coloring genius without a lot of work on your end. So I am using some alcohol markers here. These are SpectrumNoir markers. So what I tend to do is, because I don't always have all of the color family on hand, so this one, like, I'm using a really bright yellow, and then I wanted some browns and kind of like orangey browns in there. You can see I scribbled on an acrylic block. So like when I do that, I put the dark color on there, then I pick it up with the light one, and then that creates kind of like a medium color in between, so it makes it blend a lot easier. So I did that mainly for her hair, because then I thought, you know, it made her hair look a little more natural. And then for the tail, I took a really dark green, and then I kind of like traced some of those scales on there, and now I'm just coloring over them, adding a couple of the details, and I'm doing the same thing. I took that dark color on that block there, and then I picked it up with the lighter one and kind of blended it. So that's a neat trick for you. If you don't have all the colors that you need for your markers, it should work with pretty much all alcohol markers. So then what I did, so it didn't look like a peacock anymore, I cut it and kind of just split it. I just kind of wanted it, you know, raining down, I guess you could say, kind of like a unique pattern background. I didn't want anything, I definitely did not want it to look like that stencil. I didn't want it to be recognizable as peacock. So I think because I cut out the little body and everything, you can't really tell that it was a peacock. That'll be our little secret, that it wasn't really a mermaid tail stencil. So once I did that, I'm just using some 3D foam strips to assemble my card. You can use 3D foam squares, anything you want. I like the strips for the simple fact that then the entire card is raised and I don't have to worry about using a lot of squares, because, you know, sometimes you get that buckling like in between the squares. No need. I use the foam strips and voila, it's done. Now for the smaller images, I'm definitely using the squares, and then for my sentiment, I have the squares on the end, and then for the middle, I'm just using my XL runner, so then that way everything is adhered. I don't just have the ends adhered. This adheres actually to the bottom of her little tail, so everything's on there nice and slick. And then the last thing I decided, and I meant to do this before I assembled the card, but of course I completely forgot. I added a little bit of sparkle to her tail. I'm just using some clear sparkle markers. This is always also by SpectrumNoir, and I'm just real quick loosely coloring it just for that extra touch. So here is the final card, a couple of peeks. Thank you so much for stopping by. Use hashtag ThermOWeb and hashtag Deco Foil, and we will find you online. Have a great day.